We are trying to tackle the topic of zoning and land use here in Connecticut. Are developers or even local zoning boards acting in the best interest of Connecticut residents? Well, radio host Lisa Wexler is joining us now, talking about some specific examples and your opinions. Good to see you, Lisa.
Hi, good morning.
I want to take the first one. This is in Westport, and it deals with maybe a movie theater there?
Yeah, what happened in Westport was that there were some well-meaning citizens, there are some well-meaning citizens who believe that we need a movie theater back in town. At one time we had 4. When I moved to Westport we had 4. So zoning really wasn't the issue. It wasn't that they had been zoned out of town. It was that economically people had made decisions to close a movie theater. Okay. And this group approached the Planning and Zoning Commission and they said, well, can you help us? Well, the Planning and Zoning Commission on their own met with some local real estate developers. I was at one of their meetings, and they came up with a plan to propose 60-foot-high buildings in downtown Westport, in that little strip along the water.
Which is too much or too tall for a movie theater?
Well, it's not a question. First of all, the movie theater people said they only needed maximum of 27 feet high. They only needed 6,000 square feet. The proposal said a building could be as big as 50,000 square feet and 60 feet high. I alerted the neighborhood because a friend of mine who was a journalist alerted me, and I, on my radio show, spoke about it. We got over 200 people to the meeting. The meeting brought in Save Westport Now, which really carried the banner. It's its own political party, and they said, wait a second, this is not what we envisioned to be Westport. People got alerted, petitions were circulated, and the Planning and Zoning Commission this past Thursday, on their own, withdrew the amendment due to public pressure. That was a win.
Yeah.
There are other battles looming. There are other developers. There is one who is proposing a 67-foot-high building, but this is his own application. This isn't coming from the commission itself, so there'll be a fair hearing about whether or not that's good for the town.
Okay.
In Weston, a developer is proposing to restore Cobb's Mill Inn, which is a beautiful, unfortunately, closed restaurant. He wants to bring in money and resources. Sounds good. He wants to restore it and put some inns in other words, make it like a small inn. Right. But instead of going to the commission and saying, here's what I want to do with this property, he's proposing a zoning change to make a hotel district in Weston. Weston is a 2-acre rural community. They're going to fight that battle. And then you have a town like Litchfield, a little town that's very angry because Chabad, which is a synagogue group, it's a ultra-religious Jewish organization. They want to build a religious institution with a big modern building that the Planning and Zoning Commission in Litchfield feels is not in scale and is not in keeping with the way they want their downtown historic district to look. But they have a federal law behind them that was passed maybe about 10 years ago that says that a local zoning board can be and will be superseded by any religious institution that wants to build virtually anything. I think it's a very bad federal law.
So if you're a church or a synagogue, you can go...
A mosque or a Hindu temple, it doesn't matter what. You can pretty much bypass a lot of planning and zoning regulations on the ground that because of religious freedom and this particular federal statute, you don't need to comply. I think it's a terrible law. I really do. I think that I don't care what your use is, as long as you're not discriminated on the basis of your use, I think you should have to comply with planning and zoning.
Interesting.
And then there's a very interesting case that is still in litigation in Colebrook, Connecticut, again bypassing local zoning, having to do with wind farms.
Right, that's been controversial.
Very controversial, and it's still wending its way through litigation because the Connecticut Siting Council has exclusive jurisdiction about deciding where these wind farms go. Obviously, they're commercial enterprises, and again, they can bypass local zoning. I believe in local zoning. I believe in neighborhood protection for the neighbors.
So what do residents who believe in local zoning like you do to try to make their voices heard?
Well, one of the things, obviously, they have to do is show up to their hearings and keep vigilant and know what's going on. But I think that there's room to press their legislators in Hartford about some of these things that bypass local zoning. Why should the Connecticut Siting Council have exclusive jurisdiction over both cell towers and wind farms? I think neighborhoods deserve to have an input.
Interesting. And if you want to listen more to Lisa Wexler, she's got a radio.
That's how I feel.
There you go. You can check her out Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. on 1400 WSTC and 1350 WNLK. Norwalk is what it stands for. Good to see you, Lisa. Thanks. Appreciate
Logan.
that.
Always.
Erica?
Logan, lawmakers are still trying to gauge the effectiveness of the state's response to Tropical Storm Irene. This morning, 4 General Assembly committees will hold the first public hearing involving UI and CL&P.